In what scenarios or contexts would you recommend bidding on competitor brand names? And are there any circumstances where you definitely recommend just avoiding it altogether?
I think it's very important that you need to make sure that you can either offer exactly what your competitor is offering or ideally something better. I see a lot of people trying to take on competitors where they haven't really got the clout and the product or the service to do so. So I think it's very important that people take that into consideration before they start. In particular, this works really well with B2B and SaaS, which is just what I happen to specialize in, because we know that a lot of businesses and a lot of companies and brands, they really dominate those industries. So if you've got something that's a worthy alternative for people, getting out there and letting them know that you exist is a great way of doing it through competitive bidding. I always describe it as just kind of, hey, we're over here. Have you noticed us? Why don't you have a checkout of us guys instead? So that's when I think it's an ideal scenario. So you've got something to offer or something better, ideally better. You really want to show people what you've got.
So would you say even if you are, an e-commerce or retail brand, that it's not something that you should shy away from, even though traditionally it's always been strongly associated with B2B and SaaS in particular? Do you feel that this is still viable and still worth experimenting with in the e-com sector?
Yeah, I'm seeing it a lot just personally as I'm shopping, trying to do a bit of Christmas shopping early in advance. I'm seeing that a lot of, B2C ecom people are using it as well. Again, it's always a very similar thing, ASOS and Boohoo or ASOS and Pretty Little Thing, something very similar. Again, just to kind of say, hey, how about you check out us as well? I will say the one thing I always think people should take into consideration is, do you want to really poke the bear with your competitors? Do you want to start competitive bidding? And, it can get a little bit nasty. It can increase your costs. It can, generate a little bit of bad blood amongst businesses. So I will say that that's one thing that I think people need to take consideration. If they're like, yeah, I want to do it. The last question is like, are you ready for this battle? Because if you do it to them, they can do it to you as well. Yeah.
So if you're in that situation where you haven't started that kind of bidding war yet, just think about the implications. That's wise advice, I'd say. So that kind of relates to this next question, but some people might think, okay, well, we want to bid on competitor brand names. Well, we'll just follow a similar approach and strategy to our other campaigns that we're already targeting other, branded or non-branded keywords on. But why would you say that these types of campaigns are unique and they require a bit of a different approach and strategy when it comes to optimizing them?
I think the most important thing that people need to remember on this is that you could easily spend all of your budget on your competitors' names. You've got to still be focusing on what you're doing, your campaigns, your generic campaigns, your brand campaigns, whatever you've got that's running at the moment, and treat these a little bit differently. So I never go in with a big budget for these because, again, like I say, it will get swallowed up really quickly. I am a lot more reserved with my bidding strategies when I do competitive bidding. So I know we have target impression share. I see people put, I want to pay 100% of the time first position for my competitor. And that's great, but you could be spending £20 on a click for your competitor's name. It's not really worth it. So for me, it's been a little bit more reserved, a little bit more considerate, starting small with it and building it out if you see the results that you were looking to find.
Yeah, so on that note, you may be in a market where it's quite crowded, and let's say you have maybe 10 different competitors that you could potentially go after. And to your point there, if you decided that you want to go after all 10, that's going to get incredibly expensive very quickly and just annihilate your budget. So if you're in that position where there's loads of different competitors that you could potentially go for, how would you decide, which basket to put your eggs into? Should you go after the big players in your field, or should you go after the kind of smaller to medium-sized brands if that's where you're at as a business currently yourself?
The first thing that I like to do is to see who's bidding on me. That's always a good place to start. I think a lot of the times we forget to search ourselves in search engines, and I'm always surprised to see who's bidding on our brand. So I always think that that's a good place to start. It also shows, again, with the poke and the bear, they've already poked you, you just haven't poked back. So that's always one that I'd say to look at first. But I do think that you've also got to go with a similar size. that you're looking for your company. There's no point in a smaller ecom business trying to take on Amazon, for example, who are paying everybody's search results all the time. So thinking a little bit more about the size that you are, your capabilities, your product range, what you've got, and again, really making sure that you're offering something very similar price points, just homing a little bit more. You can always add people in further down the line, just trying to be quite strategic with the ones that you pick to start off with initially.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Paid Media Lab. If you found it useful, you can get the full-length episode on the Lunio YouTube channel, where you can also subscribe to catch all our latest releases. And if you want free tools, reports, and guides to help you uplift the efficiency of your PPC campaigns, head to lunio.ai and click on the Resources tab in the nav bar. See you in the next one.